Welcome back to the Noon Podcast. Today's episode will be filled with captivating stories and heartfelt camaraderie. Join me as I delve into the world of Karl and Eli, two remarkable EMS professionals and lifelong friends. Prepare for a roller coaster of emotions as we explore their funny, sad, and serious stories from their years of working together. Through witty banter and genuine friendship, Karl and Eli's bonds shine bright. Their shared experiences have forged an unbreakable connection that will keep you entertained and engaged. This episode will unveil a beautiful narrative of resilience and support. Together, they've faced countless challenges, inspiring us with their triumphs. So sit back, relax, and let Karl and Eli's captivating journey unfold before your ears. Let's begin. Welcome, Karl and Eli, to the 911 Nonsense podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can I get an introduction, Karl?
Yeah, my name's Karl. Right now I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I've been in EMS for about 13, 14 years now, and I recently got accepted in nursing school.
That's awesome. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And Eli, do you mind giving me an introduction?
Yep, I'm Eli. I am currently located in Orlando, Florida. Been here for 2 years. I'm currently a emergency medicine resident physician. I was a paramedic. I got my paramedic in 2011. Had my MT intermediate before that, but didn't work. I was a 0 to hero from basic intermediate, and then
there you go.
on the medic. But right now I'm not actually working on a truck or anything like that. I work in the emergency department. So
yeah, you don't have any time to work on an ambulance anymore.
yeah, I don't have time to do anything. But
they got you busting your butt in the ER.
Yeah,
that's really cool though. Like, because you're doing DO, right?
Yeah. So I got my degree in 2 years ago, so 2021, and so DOMD you can match in anything now. Got into an emergency medicine program here in Orlando, which is where Kira's parents live. So now I'm just waiting for that. I'm going to apply to an EMS fellowship. Actually, I apply here in August. I'm getting my application ready. Today, I worked with 3 of the 4 program directors. So I'm trying to move towards that now.
Cool. That's really exciting. It's really cool to see where our paramedics have kind of floated off and run off to. So you actually, Karl, you reached out to me and you told me that you wanted to be on the podcast. But you very specifically told me that you can only do it if Eli did it with you. What made you reach out?
So just listening to the podcast, the first couple episodes seemed really cool, recognizing some of the voices of people me and Eli used to work with. And me and Eli, at one point in time, were the youngest crew on the streets in town.
And how young were you?
21. That was the minimum age to work at the ambulance company.
At the time, for insurance purposes, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. I don't think they would allow, and I think the rules have changed since then, but before it was the insurance companies wouldn't let you drive the actual ambulance until you were 21.
Yeah, that was probably a smart decision considering one of the stories that'll probably come out through this podcast. So,
well, go ahead and share it.
So going under the embarrassing part of our careers, we everyone knows when you drive an ambulance onto a hangar to pick up a patient transfer, it is very, very protective. You have to be on your toes. They have very specific places you need to park, and you're always supposed to use a backer. 100% of the time, use a backer. And for whatever reason, me and Eli got in a little argument, and I got overconfidence. That is, Eli said, "Let me back." I said, no, we're good. And he said, "Oh, fine, you're good. Go ahead, just back up." So he stayed seated next to me, and we just back on up and right into a hangar door.
Oh.
So we actually it's probably still there at that airport because I hear those doors are pretty costly to replace.
Yes. Yes, they are.
But we got in a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah, I just remember I was like, you're gonna hit the building. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, fine, you're not gonna hit the building. And I should have been backing you up. Okay, let's just say, like, I wasn't. I'm over there charting away, and then he hits the building, and then he scoots forward and just waits there. And then the guy comes over like, did you guys like hit the building or bang? We're like, I don't know. I don't think so.
I'm surprised you guys both still had a job.
We got very lucky, and I got super lucky because I was on loss of good standing and I still got sponsored for medic school through that. So got lucky. That's all I can say about that.
That is getting lucky. Holy smokes. I don't remember hitting anything in the ambulance, but I've gotten hit a couple of times in the ambulance and we got lucky. So what got you into EMS, Karl?
So I was in Navy. I got a medical separation very early on. I don't consider myself a veteran. I didn't earn the title, in my opinion. And I was supposed to be a computer nerd. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I started out with. And I just wanted to change it up. I didn't want a desk job. So I was like, what's the next thing I do? So I looked into firefighting. And I found out that you have to be an EMT basic to start that up at the time. Now I know it's changed, but I decided to get my license and then started working out for a transport company, gained my intermediate license, and then I wanted to continue on for medic, and it just left from there. I found out that I enjoy the love of medicine over doing what fire does. I was in a firefighter 1 program, and I had to drop that to work because I was like, maybe I get the experience, it'll help me get hired over the firefighter 1, but it's all worked out for me, and it's been a huge benefit.
Eli, what got you into medicine?
So it's actually very similar to Carl's, but I, first of all, wasn't supposed to be a computer nerd. Karl still is a computer nerd, though he disagrees.
I can tell.
He bought a mic just for this. So I was I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was doing some engineering thing. I was like, math sucks. So I was like, what else can I do? And then I firefighter, I met a lot of prerequisites. So I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. So let me start doing that. Same kind of thing where to be a firefighter, you have to be an EMT basic. So I was like, let me take the EMT basic course. And in the EMT basic course, I was like, this is awesome. I love this. And then I became a medic, and then I went through intermediate, still didn't work, but I loved it. And then into paramedic school. And that's when I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Did do my firefighter 1, didn't drop out to work for a company. I finished, but then that's it. Then I just kept wanting more medicine. Now I'm kind of like, that's a lot of medicine.
That is a lot of medicine. I actually started out as a volunteer firefighter, and they didn't require that I had my EMT or anything, so I was able to get it once I was hired. And I also completed my Fire 1, and it started working on my Fire 2 before I actually moved up here to Albuquerque and started with the local company here. Would you say, because I know both of you guys are migrating your way out of the 911 service, would you say that you liked your job when you worked on the ambulance or for a 911 service?
So I did. I miss working on this truck. I don't miss it so much I want to go back to it. It has its moments. The adrenaline pumping times really, really get to me. Where the issue is, they work you to the ground and you're doing call after call after call, little to no downtime. It's one of the professions where you're not federally mandated to have a break. You just keep going. And the toll it takes on your family and your mental health is a lot. So I appreciate that all the time I had. I've learned a lot, but it's not something I want to go back to, because right now I work in hospital and it's one of the best jobs I have right now, have had.
I think it's a love-hate relationship, right? I think about times when I would go to a call, you have a camaraderie with your partner, you have camaraderie, you get to know the firefighters, you get to go on the scene. You get to go say, hey, what's up to everybody? You treat a really critical patient. You get that adrenaline. Or you go to see some weird shit, right? You're just like, what the hell? And you're like, you got these great stories. And then there's other times where you're like, I hate my damn life. And so then you're like, I don't want to do this. I am being run down. My wife has a shirt that's a joke that she goes, my husband's a paramedic. Yes, he exists. No, I don't know when he's going to be home. And and so there's things like that. But then there's also times where I'm like, man, I kind of miss doing those kind of things. But there's also, we can get into this a little later too, but there's something about being in EMS that sticks with you a little bit differently than being in the hospital. You still see some shit in the hospital, right? But seeing people in their homes and their situation and their family around them, it just hits a little different.
Right. Being there in that moment with those people and feeling the emotions that are there is different. It's easy for when you're walking into the hospital and they're like, well, what was going on? What's the history? Well, I don't know. I didn't get that. The patient can't talk. I can guess, but I agree. It is different. The emotional experience is more touching, I think, when you're working on a bus.
Yeah, and that's hard for me in my current situation to communicate with. So there's a couple medics actually in my program with me, but the vast majority aren't, right? It's a more rare. And I'm like, guys, I get it. You go to a nursing home, every day they're not their patient. I get it. No worries. We'll figure it out. And so it's hard to communicate that, but I think it's good, like seeing, having that experience on this side of it. And, but there's definitely a different emotional attachment.
The big thing that also add on to all that is if you work in a hospital, that is where your stress is. The moment you walk out of the hospital, that's left at the hospital. One of the big things that when you work on an ambulance in the city you live in, every corner is a reminder of a situation you're a part of, positive or negative. And a lot of the times you just remember the negative.
And you get that whether like you're driving down the street, there's an ambulance going by and you're like, oh shit. Or I was in the store the other day and there were some firefighters and their alarm went off and it was the same alarm.
I know that you guys aren't old enough, but I still hear like pager beeps and I get like, oh, I gotta go to work. The pager beeps. We used to carry pagers back in the day.
I still carry pagers.
I need one too for my job now.
Is it the Vocera or is it an actual pager?
Actual pager.
Ooh. I have an actual pager.
Yeah, that's terrible. Well,
it's archaic.
Welcome to the pain.
It's archaic. I don't get it.
It is. That is very archaic. I mean, even the Voceras are a little more updated. What would you say in your time in EMS or in the hospital has been like the craziest thing that you've ever seen, Eli?
The craziest thing I've seen is not in the hospital. It's still, I've been in the hospital for 2 years, right? And we're not at a trauma center, but I do rotate at a trauma center. I have seen some crazy stuff at a trauma center, though. I recently had a shark bite. This guy almost lost his arm. It's pretty cool. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. We don't see that a lot here in New Mexico.
No, it's been happening more often. It's interesting. But there's this one call I had. I'll never forget this. The guy on tramway, motorcycle going 100 miles an hour, T-boned a truck. He went through the door, through the center post. It was a 4-door truck, through the woman in the passenger seat into the back seat. And I get on scene, and I know the medic on scene, and he goes, she's in PEA arrest, traumatic PEA arrest. I can't find his head. And I was like, I'm going to go find his head. So I go over there, and I was like, this is great. So I go in there, and his head was attached. It was just in a black helmet. But that was one of the things that stands out. But,
nuts.
After so many years, a lot of these things also blend together. And then I think also there's something about this, traumatic stress, right? So we have traumatic stress in this. It's also why we are good friends and all of us can come together like this and just pick up right where we're left off, because there's actually a little bit of trauma bonding. But we forget so much of it, right? Then some of these things I have to be reminded of. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Or that was crazy. You're right. And so, but that one stands out. And then in the hospital, you just, there's a lot of just don't ever ride a motorcycle.
Yeah. Don't ever ride a motorcycle. That's true.
Gotta say, I get good gas mileage.
Yeah. They all do till they don't.
Yeah, it's definitely a good reason, Carl. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the enjoyment of it. It's just the wind flowing through your helmet.
Yeah, no, I sold mine as soon as I moved up into Albuquerque because the traffic here is insane. What's the craziest thing that you've seen, Carl?
So my craziest one, get called out for a drunk patient that is on a trail in the middle of February. And we find a bystander waving us down. We walk towards them, have our gurney out, and they're pointing to this individual that's laying on the ground. We get closer and we see that the person's naked. Get even closer, looks like we see some breasts. Get closer, see a 5 o'clock shadow. Then we realized the breasts were stress balls that were super glued to their chest. We, unresponsive, breathing, has a pulse, load them up on the gurney. Fire gets there. They jump the ambulance with us, turn the heat way up. Obviously, the patient's cold, and the patient starts waking up. We're trying to figure out, what's going on. And they're just mumbling and not making any coherent sense the whole time, start fighting against us. We get a line in them. We get Versed on board because they're starting to throw punches at fire. And I noticed that there's a wire around this patient's waist, and I can't see a penis. There's none to be seen. And I go follow where this wire is. It was actually wrapped halfway up the shaft, and then pulled into his own rectum. The hanger wire was holding it in place, so I had to cut the wire to be able to remove the penis from his own rectum. So I'd say that's the craziest thing that I have seen on on the rig.
And what did you use to cut the wire?
Oh, I always had a Leatherman on me.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you left the hanger in his ass?
Oh, no, that was never in it. That was just holding it there. It was wrapped up there and bent around so that I would hold it in place.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Found out later on that this individual has been to the ER on multiple occasions for foreign bodies in the rectum.
Not surprising, I guess. Some people, is there a term for that? Some people like to swallow random things. Is there a term for people shoving stuff up their rectums?
Reverse pica?
I'm looking at you, Dio.
No. You know who does know? Dr. Google.
Dr. Google. I would have to say I have some pretty good cop stories, but I think one of my favorites was we got called out for an ETOH patient, and we got called to an intersection, and us and fire were there, and there was no patient, but probably half a mile up you could see the cop cars all kind of in a circle. So we're like, well, that's probably where they're at, so we'll just head up that way. So we head up, and there's this lady laying in the middle of the street, clearly wasted. I won't take away from that. She was clearly intoxicated. She was yelling in pain. And when you walk up, you notice that basically both her legs are broken. And you're like, okay, PD, she's intoxicated, but she's been hit by a car. Really? Come on. What is the priority here?
I got one that happened last year that was very similar. So we get this, I don't know what we call it in New Mexico, but it's a bake rack here. It's where the psych hold for 72 hours.
Uh-huh.
So we get this bake rack that came in, and I go in there, and they're like, yeah, this guy, he's not making any damn sense. I don't know what's going on. I go in there, and the guy's like, and they're like, yeah, he was at the restaurant over here. Wasn't making any sense. So I tried to talk to him for 4 hours. I decided to bake rack him, brought him in. The guy was having a massive stroke. And the PD was on scene. They were just like, I can't figure out what he's saying, so I'm just going to bake rack him. Psych hold.
Well, along broken legs and talking about motorcycles, when me and Eli were partners, we ran a call with a truck versus motorcycle. We get on scene, and we're taking care of the big three, make sure neuro's intact, circulation, he's breathing. And then we see this kid taking pictures of his leg. And we're like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Why are you here? He was taking a picture of his leg because one was 6 inches out further from his pants than the other one. He had a amputation at the knee, below the knee, and it just...
Yeah. And both Carl and I were like, he was like, take a picture of his leg. Both of us at the same time. What's wrong with his leg?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
it's not attached anymore.
The motorcyclist had no idea.
Yeah, he did it. He was pissed.
That's funny. Ooh, that's... How do you not even know? That's crazy.
He was so mad at the truck.
So along that route, what would you say has been one of the worst things that you've ever seen? Something that affects you personally, if you feel comfortable talking about it.
So, yes, mine is a pretty comprehensive story. Get called out to a standby situation, and we're there for about 2 hours, probably the longest standby I've ever been on as a medic. And we finally get cleared. We see an individual sitting on the curb, and as we get closer, realize that it's someone that everyone knew. There was a GSW involved, and the patient was able to breathe, able to understand what was going on at the time, and it was an individual that my partner went through medic school with. And we get to the hospital, everything, he was in great condition for the circumstances. So fast forward, I feel like I had to be a tough individual for my partner to go through that instance, because that was a very sensitive time for everyone that was involved. And I'm so sorry, I was an EMT at this point, and now a year or two later, I'm in medic school, and we're doing PALS test out, and that individual walks into my classroom. I am petrified. I feel like it is, if he sees me, it's going to remind him of the worst day of his life, because he no longer working in the field, not able to. I end up stepping out of the classroom 3 or 4 times, collecting myself, and one of my classmates just straight up asked, "Hey, Karl, are you okay?" I ended up breaking down like a 12-year-old schoolgirl who broke up with her first boyfriend. It was a horrible situation. One of the instructors for most of the day, took me out, and we just talked. Come back, the individual didn't even remember 2 weeks before or 6 months after. Had no idea that I was even part of it. And all that instance for him, because he got in that situation, was because he had a call that he couldn't manage. So there have actually been a couple times me and him have given presentations on how bad PTSD in the field can mess with you if not handled correctly. Neither one of us handled it good. So that would be the biggest hit on my mental health. One of the biggest hits to my mental health was experiencing that.
And that's crazy too, because like, it's so crazy how things affect us as individuals, because I mean, ultimately this guy ended up having a good outcome, it sounds like, right? Because he was able to still move on and maybe not necessarily be in the field, but he was still doing what he wanted to do, right? And that still had such a profound impact on you because you felt like you had to bolster up for your partner that day. It's just crazy, right? How things affect us individually. One of my good friends, we went for an unconscious female, and it ended up being one of his family members. And he was on scene, and he was like, "Can I ride with you in the ambulance? Because we're transporting her code 3. She has pulses, but she's not breathing." And I told him, "You can ride, you can sit up in the front as long as you're not causing any problems, like, you know the rules." And I love that guy so much, but I felt like I had to front that also, and then didn't want to work with him after that because I felt like I couldn't handle the emotional trauma, I guess. And she ended up passing away. She had a big aneurysm that blew, and I couldn't bring myself to work with that individual anymore because I felt like I was going to remind him of that day also, and that made me sad. But I also didn't confront him on it. I didn't ask him how he felt about it, and now it's been like 5 or 6 years, and he's gone on to bigger, better things. So I guess I could talk to him now, but I just got to reach out.
That's the hard thing, yeah.
Yeah, and it affected me as an individual and wasn't even that bad of a call, How about you, Eli? What you got?
A couple things come to mind. That story from Karl, there was another individual just that I know about. This is just something to add to that situation where it was a different individual, but handled his stress from that call that was so bad, wrong in a different way, and went into substance use and is no longer able to work as well. So that, there's just a lot of different ways.
So I was actually on that call that the other two were on, and that it was I got goosebumps talking about it. That was a really bad pediatric call, one that I feel wasn't or didn't get any justice in any form, and it should have, and that's really sad. I don't even remember seeing it in the news, and that's one of those ones where you're like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of justice are we doing for these babies?
All this other bullshit makes it on the news, but the ones that we're there for, and we're like, the math isn't mathing right now.
Yeah, right. And so just to be clear, it was a baby that was essentially raped to death, and it was a very young baby who had bite marks and bruises, wasn't worked because the baby had been dead for so long that by the time the EMS got there, it was too late. And I believe the dad at the time, who's the perp, was high on either meth or some other substance. And yeah, that one was a rough call. Me and my partner went and sat down with the on-duty supervisor that day for probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours before we finished out that shift. It's funny too, like how it's affected. Like, neither of you guys were on that call, but both of you were affected like a ripple,
Yeah.
You had the people that were directly affected by that call, and then you had the people that were affected because of those people's decisions after that call. So it's really crazy to think that only one call, one call out of what I think at the time when I left the local service here, we were at 115 a year. 115,000?
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. So one call out of all of those had such a huge ripple effect on so many of us. I remember hearing about the Victoria Martins case for the first time. And I wasn't even on that call, but I felt for those providers for walking in. And if you're listening and you don't know, Victoria Martins was sold by her mother for drugs at a very young age. She was 10. And ultimately, they ended up finding her after some crazy 911 calls. They found Victoria dismembered in a bathtub. Then they were trying to burn her. They were trying to I'm assuming, destroy the evidence. And the legal action from that case has not been very good either.
What's crazy is I worked in a pediatric ER, and individuals that were involved in that situation that were not in jail or prison were coming in with other little children for similar situations, similar circumstances. And we understand that CPS has a very difficult job, and they have an even higher turnover rate than medics do. But that is definitely an area that we had great concern with, that someone that was involved in that situation interacting with kids of similar age.
Yeah, no, that's nuts. So getting back to where we were, Eli, you were going to tell us what maybe one or some of your worst calls were.
So I feel like this is true for most people, for the most part, it's involving children, right? Everybody has a soft spot, right? And so there's two that particularly stand out. And one of them, I actually can say the patient's name. It was actually televised. I had to go to court for it. I was on the stand and everything. And he was a 9-year-old who was kicked in the stomach by his mom to death. And so I was with Rachel Winnicamp, and we were switching calls. We were both medics. And I was actually not even medical on this call, but we were both medics. It's just she was in the back. And we were on San Mateo and Montgomery, and we were the closest unit to this unresponsive 9-year-old. So we get there, and we're the first on scene. And I'll never forget, clear as day, the stepdad walking out with a cigarette in his mouth, shoving 2 other kids out of the way. And I go in there with the officers. To the left, there's the kitchen, and mom's there talking to the officers, and there's the patient on a bed in a living room. And he's just halfway on the bed. And I'm the first one on the patient's side. Officer's there. Rachel's there. I don't feel a pulse. And the officer, what? I was like, I don't feel a pulse. So we move him on the ground. I get the airway, work him. We're not getting anything. We decide with this situation, something's weird. Mom's story is like he was playing with his sister on the bed, fell back, something like that. I don't remember the particulars because I don't want to. And then, so we're like, well, let's just get him out of here. We just don't, even if he's dead, let's just not have him in this place. And he died. So ends up, that at least my understanding is that our memory is that mom kicked him to death. And that one stands out because when we talk about PTSD, just bringing that in a little bit, I would go to like the lake with my family, and there would be something that brought up like my sister or something like that, and that would come to mind. And I remember one time being at the lake and drinking, and I broke down because of this. And I was like almost staring at the fire, and I'm like, I think this bothers me. And then that was where I had an epiphany. I'm like, yeah, that this is real. And then the other one kind of ties back into what I was talking about, where it's different in the family setting. And it was another kid, but she had CP. She was, I think, 6 or 8. And it was like Christmas Eve.
Cerebral palsy, just to clarify. Yeah, go ahead.
So chronically ill, trach patient. She's, nonverbal, already just chronically ill patient. And it's Christmas Eve. They went to these mountains to have dinner with their family. On the way back, get the kid out of the car, and they know she's not breathing. So they didn't know, she thought she was asleep. It was late at night. And so we worked this code. But the one thing I'll never forget is I'm sitting there, they're doing CPR, and I have the Brazos tape. I'm looking here, and I look up, and we're in the living room, patients in the middle of the floor. And I see in the bedroom, I see the little brother and the mom holding each other crying. And for some reason, that right there, I was like, even now I think about it, and I'm like, that family's life. I mean, think about Christmas forever. And that those kind of things just kind of stand out a little bit. But the interesting things were, I was training a guy on that one, and she had a trach, right? And I give him the BVM without the mask, and he's brand new basic. I'm like, all right, you got a ventilator. He goes, okay. And he tries to seal her lips around the end of and I looked down, I'm like, no. And so I had to tell him what to do. He ended up cutting her lip. And so that gets back sad. But he cut her lip, and then the mom, when she came over, when we pronounced her dead, mom was like, what happened? And we had to tell her and be like, this is what happened. But I never imagined, like, I think we all kind of do take for granted when we have new people that I've never done this. Like, maybe they need a little explanation, but
Yeah, right. Definitely explain the tube connects to the other tube in the neck, not the mouth.
You'd think so.
Yeah. Well, to add two things to your story, Eli, one of the biggest things that I remember from working in the PZR was we were working a teenager that hung herself and unconscious, unresponsive, intubated by the time she gets to RER. But the big thing that I vividly remember is that is this big, macho, tattooed individual just hearing his screams, just crying over his daughter. That is something that hits hard.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Family being on scene for those is terrible.
But so I know I have an interesting take on it from the medic standpoint. Eli's situation was talking about his pediatric code that got transported. Most situations, I know medics transport those kids, and all it does when they know it is a dead child, they are spreading the trauma.
That was one of the topics I talked about. I think it was with Colton. Do we do that for us because we think maybe there will be a miracle, or we do that to the family, like maybe to give them a little bit of hope? Or, like, are we being selfish when we transport kids like that? And that anybody who's had a child or pediatric code has run that through their heads, and it is spreading the trauma. But in Eli's case, like, for safety,
yes,
I don't blame you, Eli, for transporting that kid, even though you didn't have pulses.
That's an appropriate situation.
Yeah.
Well, this was like a huge decision. It was like a big giant. It was a big giant thing. Because I agree. Like, we didn't transport the cerebral palsy child either. We called it on scene and stuff like that. I think there are certain circumstances, and it's just like what you were saying earlier, Sam. There's a ripple effect, and you're spreading that ripple. And we do want to protect each other, from these things. Like now, also people always want to talk to me about like their stories about kids. I'm like, I don't want to hear your stories about kids anymore. Like, no, don't tell me these things.
I've got my own bad trauma. Yeah, like,
and then
please don't.
That came up now recently too. Is I got to be very careful with how much I share, what I share with this. But a I just got out of the pediatric ICU. Pediatrical. I'm a little tired.
You're a doctor.
Yeah, I'm on 3 hours. So anyway, this kid got very, very, very abused for months, and mom ended up being in that field, which is interesting as well. But like burned, locked in a cage, had a brain bleed, like lots of things. Ends up like has a good outcome. But I remember being in that room, and I had to take a deep breath. I was like, this is heavy, and it's gonna be heavy no matter what. But it does bring up some previous memories.
Yeah, I've said this a couple times too. I don't share all of my stories because I don't want to break people. And, we get into this job knowing that we're going to see really shitty things and we're going to do really shitty things. And it's hard because we feel, in my case specifically, I don't like share. I love to share. Don't get me wrong. I love sharing stories. That was part of my motivation for doing this, was getting to hang out and share stories with people. And other people in the field. And I miss doing that, standing outside of the truck or being in the ER and hanging out and sharing stories with people. There are certain stories you just don't share, and we need to break that stigma because we need to feel comfortable talking about it. And I think that, there's a lot of ignorance to what we do, and I don't think it's intentional ignorance. I think that people don't want to know what we do because it's sad and it's hard.
Well, to go off that, working in hospital, even our own peers that we work with don't fully understand. ER, those nurses have a good understanding of what medics do. Outside of the ER, we're just considered lower level licensed people. That is a big vibe of what I get in my current place of employment. And I have issues with it every day because they judge me based off just what my license is. They don't know what my experience is. They don't even know what I'm fully capable to do under my own license. I had a call at a nursing home where the patient had a broken ankle. The x-ray was taken earlier in the day. They found out, hey, this person needs to come in here to the hospital. She's going to need surgery on this. So I get there, just moving the patient a little bit. Her leg was in excruciating pain. So to move her to the gurney, I just gave her some fentanyl. Nurse comes up and says, "What doctor gave you the order to do that?" I'm like, no doctor did. I have a medical director, but no doctor gave me an order. She's like, "You're not allowed to do that." I'm like, yes, I am. My license allows me to, and the narcotics I carry for my job says I can as well. So there was a huge back and forth. She actually got in contact with her medical director to call our medical director to make sure I was doing the appropriate thing. So it's just a misunderstanding across the board of no one understanding each other's job.
And that comes back to even one of the podcasts with Rob and how he was talking about like his stories. And he was like, this doesn't leave me, right? He's like, I've learned to be able to talk about it. I've learned to be able to discuss these things, right? There's a lot of stories here. Like, yeah, you may forget them, but there's going to be something that can bring it up. And like Karl was saying back home, driving down the road, something's going to bring it up.
Yep. Do you have any stories that, like, I mean, Karl's story earlier about the penis in the butthole was a little out there, but are there any other stories that you like, that you feel like you just can't, like, you can't believe and nobody would believe you?
So I had this one guy one time. This is just a funny story, but it's a little bit like, I can't believe this guy thought of this. So we were, it was me and Anthony Montbrand, and we were on a way to a motorcycle accident. But we get there, and this guy, it's just his motorcycle, and he's on the ground, and he's like, yeah, so I was over there drinking with my buddies, and I seen his motorcycle go by, and I'm like, that's my motorcycle. So I went over there, and I tackled the guy.
That was with me.
Oh, was it you?
Yeah.
Very different people.
Come on, Eli. You're completely different people.
Well, this guy's like, yeah, so I tackled the guy off of my motorcycle, and we're like, that's genius. You can't prove him wrong.
Like, he was in the median, covered with rocks, scrapes all over him, and PD's like, well, we can't do anything about this.
I was just like, that's one of them that's out there. I also remember one time with Karl, we had this, well, it was a bad call too, but they ended up being kind of okay. These two 17-year-olds flipped their car, and I'll never forget, we were going as fast as we could up sail. Like, we were blowing everything. We even had like officers stopping everything. We get on scene, we get this girl loaded up, and we start rolling out. And once again, we're going, Karl's driving as fast as he can down, and then all officers are stopping all the traffic. And anyway,
a crazy call with Eli, or maybe it was you, Sam. Who knows?
Who knows?
We get called for a shooting, a GSW, and we're told to stay. The rule is like a block up, block over, wherever the scene is, until PD is able to clear the scene. We were a block up and block over from the dispatch information that was given to us. We're looking in this large courtyard area. We see someone just sitting there. We're just thinking, all right, some guy just chilling in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. Around the corner of the building of where this guy is sitting, we see about 4 or 5 PD officers in a line, guns drawn, pointing at the guy sitting down on the ground. Next thing we hear over the radio, all EMS, get out of the red zone.
So you were inadvertently in the like safety area.
That happened with me and Benagiri, where we were going to the East Mountains, no radio service at all, and we're going to this domestic violence, and we're down this freaking middle dirt road, bouncing all around, like, where is this place? And then we just see this guy in the middle of the road walking towards us with a rifle, and we're like, we need to back up.
That's crazy. He's just coming at you, like, come on, motherfuckers.
He's got a rifle.
Oh, like, well, the first MCI call I had as a medic was guy decided to just drive on the sidewalk where there were about 30 plus homeless people and goes over all of them. The first patient we walk up to, he's face up and back up at the same time.
Oh.
So that was a black tag immediately. And that was the first MCI I had to deal with was that.
That's crazy.
That was pretty crazy. Yeah,
You're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
We should find a time, Karl, to tell about the gunshot wound to the bicep.
Well, Eli, since you brought it up.
So we have this call.
You might as well talk about it now.
So this call. We're once again standing by forever. It's a gunshot wound. It's in, South Valley somewhere. And we're waiting. We get there. We're finally cleared. We get over there, and we're in this backyard. This guy got, he was hanging out with his friend in his garage, got shot. Only a gunshot wound to his bicep. And we get there, and then Karl and I, we see this blood trail. He was running away and everything. And me and him go pick this guy up. We have him in our arms. And one of the firefighters is like, does he have a pulse? And we're like, I don't good question. So we put him back down. Luckily, we didn't get him like in the ambulance. Right? Yeah, he was dead. He was dead.
Oh my God.
Just need to reiterate.
It goes back to ABCs, guys. Come on.
Me and Eli were partners at the very beginning of our careers.
Yeah.
We learned a lot.
We got to learn somehow.
There were a lot of learning curves.
Still don't know enough, Carl.
Carl, was it you and me? I was talking about this call last night with the Ochoa brothers. Was it you and me that left the stretcher at UNM and had rolled up on a 9 Echo?
No, it was not, but I have a similar story.
So do I.
So 9 Echo is a cardiac arrest. Go ahead, Carl.
Mine's not as intense, but I don't even remember who my partner was. We left the hospital. It was one of the back-to-back call days, and it was actually a severe allergic reaction that we're responding to. We get on scene, get ready to pull the gurney out. No gurney to be found. So we had to call
that's the worst.
Yeah, we had to call dispatch and be like, you need to send someone else out to this. We're going to find the patient, and we still had all our bags and everything, just had to carry them, but needed someone with a gurney.
Ours was, I don't remember the call at all, but it was with Reed's Leslie. And we were like, they just got out of Rust, so we weren't too far away. And we go to the back, and we're like, oh, it's a shock. You're like, we forgot something. And so... And so I was like, all right, what I'm going to do is I'll take all the bags. I'll go inside, start seeing the patient. Go get the gurney. And so he's like, okay. So he runs back real quick, gets the gurney, and it works out okay. But it's a pretty shocking thing to see no gurney.
Yeah, when you roll up. When we were at the hospital, there's like the two. So if you walk straight down the hallway, there's the double doors to triage. But you can go the other way through triage and then cut back through one of the units. And that's how we ended up leaving our gurney. We had parked it in the hall next to triage, and then we went out a different way than we came in. So we just missed it. Have you ever forgotten any other equipment?
Life packs.
Oh, yeah.
Blue bags.
Oxygen tank on scene.
Never forgotten a new person, a rookie.
No.
I actually got left when I was doing my when I was in paramedic school. I was doing my rotation, and man, I was just talking so high about these girls too, and I forgot about this. They left me at the hospital, and they got like 3 blocks away, and I walked out and I was like, what the fuck? So I had to call him back.
I've not done that.
Yeah.
I don't think
Don't forget your box troll, guys. Come on.
Oh, I hated that. And then when you're field operations supervisor, you like lived back there.
How long did you manage for?
Oh, very short amount of time. I was like, I think it was, I didn't like it.
They redacted. They were like, just kidding.
No, I didn't.
No, they needed him.
I was like, I don't want to do this. So I was like, I think it was like October to maybe probably a little bit. It was like August to January. That was it. And so I trained a couple people, and like there was this one guy. I think he's doing better now, but or at least he was. I mean, this was 7 years ago or something like that. And he just got his license like 3 months before starting, and he was actually the same guy that tried to do the lip on the CT patient. And I was like his third trainer, because they just keep handing it to. I was like just give him time, keep him with me. We'll be okay. We'll just figure this out. Just give me time with him. And then there was like, man, you wouldn't believe some of the stupid stuff that we do as medics. Like, I had best friends that did things, and I'm like, what? I remember one day I'm just gonna throw him under the bus. Cash called me one time, and I'm 0-1 that night, and he calls me. He's like, yeah, so we got out of this call, and all 4 of our tires are slashed. So I was like, do you want us to call PD? And I'm like, yes. Please call PD. What the hell's happening?
Yes.
They went in the exit of an apartment complex. So it wasn't all 4 tires. It was all 6 tires.
Oh.
Oh, that's pretty bad. Oh, that's pretty bad.
But that one was funny. But there's just a lot of things like that. That I was just like, yeah, I don't know. I say that I didn't like doing that as much, but now I'm also going to be chief of my residency, and so now I'm back in a similar position. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Real smart there. Yeah. No, that's awesome, dude. That's really cool that you're up there and that you're progressing so well. That's a no joke move, going into med school.
It's a very much a marathon. Because I remember I was also thinking about this with your other podcast I was listening to. We were talking about how we work overtime, right? I remember you remember mandatory overtime, and then I remember working when you didn't have mandatory overtime, and all of us worked the overtime anyway. So I was like, why are you making it mandatory? We do it anyway. But
I know most of us do it anyways.
Yeah. And then like I remember also with med students and like residents are like, you mean I have to work 12-hour shifts? That's inhumane. I'm like, what? We're working 4 or 5 13s, and sometimes there was 24s. What are you talking about, man? That's fine. Anyway, good.
Oh, I was just gonna say there was a period of time when me and Eli were working together. We were seeing each other way more often than our significant others for like years.
Yeah, the first year of my marriage, Kira worked days, I worked nights. We'd have like a day or two a week where we'd maybe do something, but like there was times where we didn't even see each other for weeks. But it's kind of the same thing now.
I don't miss those days. Yeah.
That's what's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I did it again.
Yeah,
like, You know what sounds like a good idea? Let's prolong this with less pay now.
Yeah, let's keep this going.
I was also interested in ICU fellowship, and the ICU fellowship is the same thing. 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts for 2 years. I'm not...
I just don't... I don't understand how they think that that's feasible for people.
People do it. They do it all the time, but man...
I know, it's a competition, right? Like, you've got to be the biggest and the best to get it and to do it.
Yeah, but I just... we want to have kids, and I want to see my wife. I mean, I'm 33 now, and my attendings are younger than me. So
nothing about either one of our careers, any of our careers has been normal. We've all kind of gone separate ways within medicine.
None of us are normal, period.
No shit.
That's true. In EMS, I think you get a lot of the weirdos, right?
Weird people. It's really nice though in the hospital though, because like in my new role, I get along with the medics. So like I'm just like, because they know me, I know them, I can give them shit. Like I remember there's this one firefighter that comes in. Every time he comes in, I'm like, we're closed. Go home.
Go home.
And then there's another one that every time we walk by, I just flip them off.
That's like the universal hello,
Yeah.
I love that. I definitely miss the camaraderie of the 911 system. I'm finding it a little more in my position where we fly more regularly to certain areas, getting to know the nurses a little more. So it's coming back a little bit in this career, but still hard. You still have to find that fine line between being professional and when you can just joke around and shoot shit with people.
Right now, this truly just feels like we're back at the service and we're just chilling in the supervisor's office and venting about how our night went.
Or in the charting room.
Yeah.
How many hours of overtime were spent in the charting room?
Yep. We all got in there and everybody would pile in. We'd all be hanging out and doing the same exact thing.
Look at this strip. Look at this strip.
Look at this tiny, 8x5 room, and there's like 12 of us sitting at the desk space in the dark most of the time because we're all just like, fuck life, fuck this.
And then you're like trying to concentrate on something serious. Someone says something funny. Everyone's busting out laughing like, son of a bitch.
I know. You're like, shut up for a second, okay?
We all try to talk over each other. We're all like, oh, I got a story now too. I got a story as well.
Yeah, I'm going to one-up that. I got this. Guess what? I found up the butthole today. So let's talk about whether or not you would do this again. If you could start all over, would you do it again?
Yes. Then like once again, it's a love-hate relationship, but I love medicine. I don't really say it very often, I guess, and I need to appreciate this a little bit, but and maybe have some more self-confidence. But I believe I'm actually good at what I do as well, and so to go there, I mean, and also medics can run codes better than a lot of doctors, to be honest. It's pretty amazing. And so then to go in there and be comfortable with code and do this, and I do like it. There's days when, like right now, this is one of my longest stretches. I'm very tired. I'm exhausted, but I'm doing something that I do really like, and I get to do some cool things. I do get to make a difference in some people's lives, even if it's just like, in my opinion, in my new situation, and you guys too, when you're in the field is or wherever you are, is to have that good bedside manner too, right? Like there's doctors that don't have that bedside manner. It's just happened recently where this mom, where a girl who had a very traumatic thing, she ended up being better, but mom didn't like the attending, so I was like trying to smooth it over, and I was in there with mom a lot, and they thanked me like tremendously when they left and stuff. And so I would do it again. There's some things I would do differently. I question sometimes if I do it differently, where I would like go to med school earlier, work as an AMT before I went to paramedic school, things like that. But then I also realize, would I be what I am? Like, would I be where I am today? Would I, like, maybe there's things like I would be that doctor who can't really run a code very well, or I wouldn't have that bedside manner, or those kind of things. And so, but I would do it again.
Yeah, no, you are who you are today because of the experiences that you had. I think that puts you up a foot higher than everybody else that's in your program, because you have that experience. Even though you're not going in as young as everybody else, you have the ability to have trauma bonded with yourself, and you know that you can handle anything that comes at you and still do it with a smile on your face. And that's not something that everybody has.
We are able to learn the book knowledge. Everyone has that capability. You need experience to gain that bedside manner that you talk about. You don't have it right out the gate. No one does. So obviously that was a huge benefit to where you are at now. One thing I'll say about our partnership and friendship that we have, Eli, is we've kind of pushed each other to do better. Following you, seeing how you were a medic, every time we'd get done with a critical call, I always watched you say, hey, what can we do better? We would ask the docs, we would ask the nurses, hey, what can I do differently to make this situation better? I carried that into being a medic. And then we had a competition, like, who's going to get critical care team first? And then we both just moved on and got the FPC, and then both worked at a flight service, and then just kept moving up the ladder. We have a good, healthy competition. I'll let you win the doctor one, okay?
Okay. I still do that.
I'm glad it sounds like you guys had a good healthy relationship. That's good, because when me and Richard were partners, it was like, yes, exactly. When Richard and I were partners, it was like, I think it was, oh man, now I don't know if it was Anthony or if it was Richard. I think it was Anthony, and we had like let's bring in 50 chicken nuggets and see who can eat them first.
It was Anthony. I did it with Anthony. Every code we had to get a chicken, a Wendy's Baconator, and one day we had 2 codes. We had to get 2 Baconators.
Oh, that's rough.
I was so sick, but I was him.
Yeah, it was the 50 chicken nuggets, and then we did the party donuts. We both had to eat a party donut in a shift. The party donuts are the big 6 donuts each donut. Oh, it was terrible.
I had to do that.
It was terrible.
We also did a box of Krispy Kreme, a whole Dion pizza each. Yeah, he did that a lot.
Oh, we did they had 50-cent corn dog days, and we would do like 10 or 20 corn dogs.
Cool.
Shoot. It was bad. So if you could give one piece of advice to either your younger self or somebody new coming into the field, what would you give them?
Something that does come to mind is, it's things do end up working out, right? Like you go in there, do your best, take it seriously. And so that's what I even still tell myself now, like we have bad days and all you can do is go in there and do your best. But that doing your best is do your best, right? Like we do things that affect people's lives, and doing your best means that you gotta, study and try to know what you're doing, and then go in there and every day just try to do your best, because you're going to have a horrible call or you're going to have a really frustrating call. And then the next one, still got to go in there and try to do your best.
Very similar. You're going to get better if you want to be better. Where in EMT school, like you have the medic walk in, the flight medic, and it's like they're this awe-inspiring person. And then you get to that level, and then it feels like you still feel like that EMT basic. You still feel like you're not there. but you keep trying.
I still feel like an EMT basic.
Yeah. Truly, like
I'm sure at your level you do too. There are a lot of things.
Legitimately, though, like
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you should be constantly learning in this field. You should never stop your education.
I still, what Karl was saying earlier is about breaking down calls and trying to do better. This is, I guess, another piece of advice I'd give not only myself but to other people. Is I still do that. I still do that to this day. After a code, after a critical patient, I will ask everyone. I'll go up to the nurses who are new even and be like, how's this? And they're always surprised too. They're like, what do you do? I actually had the other day a tech who I asked, or respiratory therapist or a tech, and I think I've asked both of them recently, and they both said the similar thing. I was like, I mean, what am I going to tell you? I'm like, you can learn from anybody. EMTB doesn't stand for empty my trash, bitch.
Empty my trash, bitch.
Doesn't stand for that.
I haven't heard that one yet.
And so you can learn from anyone, treat everyone with respect, and always try to get better and ask for advice. You don't know what you don't know.
Those are all really good points. I want to kind of end on a higher note. So are there any calls that are your absolute favorite? Like something that you just think about and it brings a smile to your... Eli's got one already, I could tell. Anything that just you love so much and it's one of your favorite memories.
I've been waiting to talk about this one, and Karl and I brought it up that we were going to talk about it too. So we had this guy who was drunk. And this is a little bit where we laugh at dark things. But anyway, so this guy...
Usually.
Yeah. This guy was going to kill himself. It was suicidal. He was really drunk and tried to drown himself in a bathtub. And it didn't work. He was fine. But he's super duper drunk. And we get him to the back of the ambulance, and his family's super worried. His girlfriend's there, his mom's there, like, is he going to be okay? Well, yeah, he's suicidal and stuff. So they're standing on the curb. We have the door shut, and this guy he's making jokes even with us. And he's not like answering something. And Karl tries to wake him up, and the guy just goes, just fucking punch me in the face to wake him up more. And we just started laughing just because the guy was giving us jokes. And Karl opened the back door, laughing his ass off. And then you just see mom, girlfriend, sister, just there like just watching Karl get out of the back. They were pissed. I think they actually called.
Yeah, they called 01.
So mad at him. And I had to go out and be like, I'm so sorry and everything. But it just brings a smile to my face because you guys know, you guys have heard this podcast already, and Karl's laugh is unique. And so
I know it's awesome, right?
Then seeing him laugh like that. And then working with Anthony Brandon and eating to celebrate their cardiac arrest, we had to have the Wendy's Baconator. And that was the last time I had 2 Baconators in one day, and I never had it again. But
I don't think I've ever had 2 in one day.
I don't know many people that have.
Mine's a super simple one. Foreign body up the nose. This little 4-year-old girl put a crayon up her nose, and every time she would breathe, she would whistle. It was just super cute. And that's just a super simple call, super simple situation. No one's life was in danger, no life, limb, or eyesight. And it was just a nice, entertaining call to look back on.
That's awesome. Probably one of my most memorable calls is PD called us for an intoxicated female downtown. And it was late, and she was in a party dress. And they just called because she was intoxicated. She was walking down the street. They didn't feel comfortable with her being out. They felt she was too intoxicated. And, we'd been running all day, so I was tired. And I was like, you want us to transport somebody who's intoxicated that doesn't need to be tying up the system? Okay, we'll do this. Let's get her in the ambulance. I'm already jumping in the back. Let's do this. Let's get it over with. And it was a male officer and a female officer. And this lady's pissed. She doesn't want to go to the hospital either. She is stumbling. So she gets mad because they're trying to get her over to the ambulance. And she takes off the hair tie that she had around her wrist. And she chucks it at the officer. And I was like, cool. She's not going to come with me anymore. And the male officer's like, come on, stop messing around. You're still going to go to the hospital. And she was like, no, fuck you guys. And she tries running. And I was like, cool, we're not going to take this one. And they catch her and they're like, no, you're going to the hospital. Like, stop fucking around, basically. So he grabs her by the arm and he walks her to the back of the ambulance. And she's like, let go of me, let go. And he gets her to the back of the ambulance. All the doors are already open. She's pissed. She's had enough. She turns around and she socks this officer in the face. And I'm like, cool, I'm not going to take this one anymore. And he's like, you know what? Now you're going to jail. I was like, do you want an ice pack for that boo-boo, buddy? Like, come on.
That's pretty good. I got a question. This reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you guys. What is some of that, like, so this just reminded me of this. What is a very colorful insult that you have been told? So, like, one time I got called by a drunk girl, a Boy George looking motherfucker.
Boy George. I haven't had any colorful ones. For me, it's just like, you fat bitch, basically. That's what it comes down to. There's not been any creative ones for me. I'm like, come on, try again. At least make it fun,
I can't think of anything unique that someone's ever. Do you know of one that?
No, not for you, but there's another one. Like, I don't know why you've not been.
It's just your face. Right.
So
it's just my face.
In my career, I have had only one patient, which has actually surprised me. Only one patient who has told me, and it's ironic, not to touch her because I'm gay. And we were transporting her. I don't even remember I think she had cellulitis in the hand or something because she'd been shooting up and she was Hep C positive. So it was like, you're telling me not to touch you because I'm gay and you're the fucking contagious one. That's great, right? But my partner at the time, we walked into this patient's room and she was like, oh, no. I don't want her in the back with me. I want her. Like, I want you in the back with me. And she was like, I'm also gay. And she was like, oh, you don't look gay. And my partner had 2 gay moms. So it was funny. And the camaraderie, and I'll never forget her for that. That was awesome. When we got to the receiving facility, we were walking in with the gurney, and I'm still kind of pissed. I'm a little chuffed about it. And we walk in, and I was like, who's this patient's nurse? And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And you hear from behind the nursing station, it's me. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is not going to get any better. Yes. And all of the nurses were like, we're all gay tonight, just for that reason. So that was a really cool, probably one of my favorite stories that started out kind of shitty and ended up really good.
Nice.
Do you guys have any charities or any support groups or anything that you'd like to talk about?
Mine is just double downing on one of your previous podcasts, Rob and Skull for Hope. That is one that I was even at his TED Talks that he did. I was in the theater. It's a very good thing that he does, representing that EMS and first responders in general, and we're bad at dealing with mental health. I've had my low points where after work I would just go drinking to try and forget everything. I think it's something that everyone kind of has their minute in, if not worse. And you have to learn to manage it appropriately. At this point in time, anytime I have a bad day due to a patient or a situation, I actually refuse to drink because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole like that.
Sure. But that's a smart move.
Yeah. I have my own collection of Skull for Hope's bracelets. I've even been able to give Macklemore, he has a Skulls for Hope bracelet, whether he knows it or not.
That's cool.
I handed it to him when he was in doing a show downtown. But yeah, it's a very good organization, and there's a lot of support there. Rob's done a good thing.
He has. I agree 100%.
So I was going to say the same one, but there's something interesting with Rob. So I also, have Skulls for Hope shirt. I want to get some fit scrubs, but I got to get fit first. It's something that, that I listened to Rob's episode and it hit me a little bit more. And I do kind of remember some of his podcast things in the past, but I guess it just brought it more to the front of my mind again. And it's that, Rob, when you see him, right, you were on the scene with him. He is this super fit, tall guy, medic, and then I like tattoos. The guy's got tattoos on his hands. I'm like, this guy's badass. And you're like, and then you hear about even like his struggles, and you're like, yeah, man, it's everybody, And so I like that, like what he's doing now. So I have, some of his merch. And then there's this other thing that I like that's going on. I think it's also bringing awareness. It's this podcast called 911 Nonsense that...
Thanks, bro. Just a little shout out. I actually wanted to touch on it, and I had forgot that you had talked about, but you had talked about when you went drinking at a camping site and you didn't realize that it was going to come up, and you saying that actually brought up a story to me. And I don't drink very often. I'm not a big drinker. My family has alcohol problems, so I generally try to stay away from it. So I drink maybe, I don't know, 2-3 times a year, and it's usually when I'm surrounded by family and I feel comfortable enough. But one of a few years ago, I got absolutely wasted, and I say white girl wasted. But the entire time, like after I had gotten to a certain extent, I started crying about a little girl that we had that got bit in the face by a dog. And, at the time, I was, and it's funny because my wife was kind of, everybody was kind of laughing at me. It was like, you're upset because the only thing I could say when I was intoxicated was, animals are animals. Like, animals are going to bite. Why do we do these things that put us in positions where we're going to get bit by animals? But that was kind of like my upset that I had seen this little girl with her face ripped up. And I think also too, having a similar experience, because I have a scar right here that most of you guys have seen, I'm sure. And that's from a dog also when I was really young. It's just funny how we don't know that it's going to come out until it comes out. And we don't know how it's going to come out until it comes out. And, that night I was just upset and crying about how animals are animals. And we shouldn't be around animals because animals are going to bite us. But that was my kind of expressing that sadness, Kind of weird. But I didn't think about that till you just said it. Yeah.
It just comes out like you see something and then all of a sudden your mind's like, you can get a smell, you can get a sound. It's all kinds of things. So. It's interesting.
Oh, I feel bad because I was mean. I wasn't mean. I went in to try on a pair of shoes in the mall, and the lady came out, and she was young. She was like, I don't know, 19, maybe, if that. And she had come out, and she was like, can I help you? Like, is there a specific size that you want to try on? And she had probably just eaten lunch, and then she had used Listerine. And I was like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm so sorry. Like, trying not to be rude, but I couldn't. It was making me nauseous, the smell of Listerine on her breath, because of the ETOH friends that we transport who drink Listerine. Like, it's so small, like so strong. And I felt so bad because she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's not your fault. I'm sorry. Like, I felt bad about that lady too.
I also wanted to touch on just one thing that's just very interesting, and this gets a little bit, just comes to mind, right? So you guys all everybody talks about not drinking and not wanting to drink. We all a lot of people go to that, but the way like you actually get really into alcoholism and addicted to it is the way the dopamine pathway works in your head is two different ways that you really get down it is when you are drinking to feel better or drinking to forget, right? So those two things trigger a certain pathway in your head with dopamine to give you that more positive response. And so somebody once told me, you only drink to feel even better, not to feel better. So like you got to be like, be in a good mindset, stuff like that. You don't drink to feel better. So don't use it as like a medicine, because that's how you can get down that pathway.
That makes sense, doctor. Thank you.
And another thing I think is interesting too is that, and this is just coming up again, I'm sorry if I'm taking us off track a little bit.
No.
Is that Karl and I have very different belief systems. And when you come into PTSD and having that support in your life, everybody has a different approach to things. And I think it's just interesting. Karl and me are very good friends. He's probably my best friend. And we are complete opposites. Karl's an atheist. I'm very strong Christian. or at least I like to say that.
Lift more, bro.
And so we have just different ways of going about it and different approaches to things. And so but find that support system. And
do either of you guys see counselors?
So
yes.
I have done the formal counseling sessions. If you're ready for it, they're good for you, but you have to be ready for it. One of the best things is having people that you can talk to that understand the situations that you've gone through. That has probably been the number one thing that's helped out. Those meetings after work of us just bullshitting around, talking about our stories. This is probably the best thing.
And I did do some, and I need to do more, and I am aware of this. I get told by my wife, and then with Rob's episode, I was like, yeah, I need to do that too. And so, but I did do it, but I did one of those online app ones, and don't necessarily do that. Very cookie cutter, and did not go very well. Like Carl said, they didn't know, like they just don't even know how to approach it, right? So
I did a very specific individual therapist one that it did wonders for me. It helped me out a lot.
That's good. That's good to hear. And I'm glad you guys are able to find the help that you've needed in the way that you've needed it. And to what you were saying, Carl, I think, us finding help comes down to us also, to recognizing that we need the help and to not being afraid, because it is going to be uncomfortable. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable. That's your next step to getting better. You're going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, but once you open up, you're going to feel a little bit better. One of my ways of feeling better is talking, right? And there's a very fine line, and I was going to kind of mention this earlier. There's a very fine line for us between venting and bitching. And I think a lot of people from the outside take it as bitching when we're venting. And, I can see that. I can see how that could be construed that way. But again, that's opening up the dialogue. That's, we're not bitching about how much we hate our job. We love what we do, obviously. I've been doing it for going on 19 years. You guys have both been doing it for a long time, and you may have stepped away from 911. I've stepped away from 911, but we are progressing our care. We're moving on to bigger, better things. And that doesn't mean that we're leaving because we couldn't handle it. In all aspects for us, we're going to somewhere where we can make a bigger difference, in my opinion. And I think people struggle with knowing that, especially looking on the outside in.
Made me think about us in the residency right now, because a lot of people are like, man, you just bitch a lot. And I'm like, I should probably ask them if we're bitching or if we're venting.
Right. And that's really all it is just changing the perspective. If I'm talking about something, it's probably because I feel the need to talk about it, not because I just want to get it out. Not because I hate it. Obviously, I don't hate it. I've been doing this for so long. Obviously you don't hate it. You're becoming a doctor. Obviously you don't hate it. You're going into nursing school. We're still in medicine.
Yeah. Well, one thing I actually want to play on that is about me going into nursing school is I love the job. I love the license. I've done so much with my medic license. I've been able to travel the world with it, work at all kinds of different levels. But as you guys know, the compensation as a medic, it's not there for what we do. And that is the big reason. Like, if I could stay medic and make as much as a nurse, I absolutely would. But right now, for as long as I've been in it, I'm making as much as a new grad nurse. And that's the higher end of medics, It sucks that is the determining factor, but it's also going to open a lot of doors to do different things. It's not even like the licenses. I consider them both entry-level medicine. But they're designed in completely different ways. Medics are meant for emergencies and emergencies only. Critical care, like, that is their specialty. Nursing, they can also do the emergency and critical care, but they are day-to-day, like the nursing home, rehab facilities. There's so much more you can do with that license across the board.
I agree. That leaves a lot of open doors.
Whatever you tell yourself, Carl.
Dick.
Yes, doctor.
Before we close out, are there any topics that you guys wanted to talk about?
I will add, when I graduate, I'm going to have zero debt. So
I'm in storm with the debt. I am just two just little quick things that I wanted to just thought of when we were planning this. Was my first day working with Carl. We were headed back to base, and I was sitting there on the call, and I'm like, man, I really wish you could remember everything from paramedic school. And we were at that light, I don't know, what Comanche or something, and he goes, if you're going to be my medic, you sure as hell better. First day. Well, first day.
Now you can be my medic, okay?
Well, I don't know. I still don't know enough. I never will. And then also,
and that's a running joke between us.
Yeah, this has also been very good for me. I think that there's also saying Rob's again. I know I keep bringing that one up, but it's because I think me moving out to Orlando, I don't have a lot of the same friends I had. I mean, I have my residency friends, but like they also move on a lot. We don't see each other a lot with some things, and then I think that this really helped me, even just being here, talk with you guys, laugh out a little bit, and I think it was a good thing. So.
Well, it doesn't have to be recorded, man. You can call anytime.
It's good. I like us getting together. I miss doing that.
Yeah, it's
it
good.
Is good.
And that, that's kind of the push for, again, doing this is to get people to open up and talk and just chit chat, see how we're doing. One of my managers always says, you are your brother's keeper. So let's keep track of each other and make sure that we're all doing okay, and not just the ones we know, but also the ones we don't know. Lift each other up and keep pushing forward.
Agreed.
And be that approachable person.
Yes.
You guys know those. You guys remember those medics when you were those 25-year medic.
Frumpy ass medics.
Ooh, you don't want to ride in the truck with him. Don't be that person.
It's true. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I had an absolute blast. I was so excited to see you guys again, and it's been nice, and I love catching up.
Well, thank you for having me.
Same. This has been awesome.
Yeah, no problem. We'll probably invite you guys again later on down the road.
All right. Just let me know.
Glad to do it. Yeah.
All right, guys. So you guys have a good day. We'll talk to you later.
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye. Thank you for listening. Before we wrap up, we have a few important announcements to share with you. Firstly, we're excited to announce the launch of our brand new 911 Nonsense Facebook group page. It's a community where everyone can go to connect, share ideas, discuss topics from the show, and get all of the most recent updates about the podcast. We'd love to have you join us and be part of the conversation. Next, we want to ask you to rate and review our podcast on your preferred platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach a wider audience. By rating and reviewing the show, you'll be supporting us in a big way and helping others discover 911 Nonsense. If you enjoy what we do and would like to support the podcast even further, we have a few options available. You can visit samspursuit.com to find the links to our 911 Nonsense merch page and our recently released Noon gear page. Every contribution, no matter the size, goes a long way in helping us continue to better the podcast. We know that not everyone is comfortable being on the podcast, but we still want to hear your stories and experiences. If you have a compelling story and would like to share it to be read by me in a future episode, please reach out to us via email at 911nonsense@gmail.com or through our website's contact section. If you choose to be anonymous, we'll make sure to respect your privacy while sharing your story in a way that resonates with our audience. Thank you again for tuning in. We truly appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more engaging content in the future. See you next week.